The declaration. The emergency session. The Stellar Alliance Council chamber floated in the void between three stars, a massive station built by civilizations that had ruled space for millennia. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 42 species gathered in their designated zones. Some breathed methane, others required extreme cold, and a few existed as energy patterns held together by magnetic fields. At the center platform stood Supreme Chancellor Zareth, a being whose species had evolved on a world of crushing gravity. His body was compact and dense, covered in protective plates that gleamed under the chamber's artificial light. He had led the council for 2 centuries and had never encountered a problem he could not solve through superior firepower or diplomatic pressure. Today's problem was different. Ambassador Sarah Chin sat in the human delegation zone, a simple chair in a simple area designed for oxygen breathers. She was 47 years old, with black hair tied back in a practical bun and eyes that had seen enough political theater to remain unimpressed. Her assistant, James Park, sat beside her with a datapad taking notes. The chamber's translation field hummed as Zareth began speaking. His voice carried the weight of authority accumulated over 200 years of absolute rule. This council convenes to address the matter of humanity. 300 cycles ago, we welcomed them into our alliance as probationary members. We offered them knowledge, protection, and the opportunity to learn from civilizations far older than their own. Sarah listened without expression. She knew what was coming. In exchange, we asked only for reasonable tribute. Resources to maintain the protection we provide. Technology sharing to ensure the safety of all alliance members. And most importantly, adherence to the territorial limitations placed upon all developing species. A Krillian representative, resembling a floating jellyfish in a containment field, pulsed with bioluminescence. The humans have violated every agreement. They expanded beyond their permitted 3 systems. They now occupy 17 worlds without authorization. They refuse to share their faster-than-light communication technology, added the Sien, whose multiple eyes blinked in sequence across its elongated head. Zareth raised one massive hand. Most concerning of all, they have rejected our tribute requirements. When we increased the resource allocation to 40% of their total output, as a standard for probationary members, they simply stopped paying. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Clicks, whistles, harmonic tones, and electromagnetic pulses all expressing shared outrage. Sarah raised her hand. The gesture was so human, so primitive, that it took a moment for the chamber to fall silent. Ambassador Chin, Zareth acknowledged. You may speak. Sarah stood. Thank you, Chancellor. I want to make sure I understand the situation correctly. You're upset because we expanded our territory, developed our own technology, and refused to give you half of everything we produce. 40%, Zareth corrected. My mistake. 40%. Sarah's tone suggested it was not actually a mistake. And your solution to this problem is what exactly? Zareth's plates shifted, a sign of satisfaction among his people. The Stellar Alliance Council has reached unanimous decision. We hereby declare formal war upon the species known as humanity. You have 60 standard cycles to surrender unconditionally and accept integration into the Alliance under full subjugation protocols. He paused, letting the words settle. Your worlds will be occupied. Your resources will be redistributed. Your technology will become Alliance property. Your people will serve the greater good of civilizations that have earned their place among the stars. The chamber waited for panic. They expected begging. Every probationary species that had faced this moment had reacted with desperation. Sarah Chin smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who had just won a bet. I'm sorry, she said, and then she laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a genuine full-bodied laugh that echoed through the translation fields and confused 42 species simultaneously. Zareth's plates rippled with confusion. You find your impending conquest amusing? Oh, absolutely, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. James, are you recording this? Every word, Ambassador. Excellent. Send it to Geneva immediately. The Secretary General will want to see this. She looked up at Zareth. Chancellor, I need to make a call. This is exactly the kind of thing my government pays me to report immediately. She pulled out a communication device, an archaic technology by Alliance standards, and spoke in English without bothering to activate translation. Karen, it's Sarah. They did it. They actually declared war. All 42 species, unanimous vote. She listened for a moment, nodding. I know, right? I'll send the formal declaration. Tell the Admiral to start warming up the reserve fleet. She paused. Yes, the whole thing. Every ship we've got. Sarah ended the call and turned back to the council. Her smile had not faded. The United Earth government formally acknowledges your declaration of war. We will provide our official response within 1 week. There is nothing to respond to, Zareth said coldly. Surrender or be destroyed. Those are your only options. Before I go, can I offer you some advice? Sarah asked. You presume to advise this council? I do. You should read our history files. We uploaded them to the Alliance database when we joined. Start with the 100 Years' War, where humans fought each other for a century over a piece of land. Read about the Mongol invasions, where a small group of warriors conquered half the known world. Look up the Siege of Stalingrad, where humans fought building to building in the middle of winter rather than surrender. She picked up her datapad and walked toward the exit. At the door she turned back. You see a young species with limited territory and developing technology. You see easy prey. But you made one critical error in your analysis. And what error is that? Zareth demanded. You forgot to ask yourselves why humanity spent 10,000 years fighting itself before we even left our home planet? You forgot to wonder what kind of species gets so good at warfare that we had to invent international laws just to make combat survivable. You forgot to check why we have so many words for different types of conflicts. The chamber was silent. We have a saying on Earth, Sarah continued. If you want peace, prepare for war. We've been preparing since the day we learned we weren't alone in the universe. She gave them one last smile. See you in 60 cycles, Chancellor. Try not to bring too many ships. I'd hate for the salvage operation to take too long. The door closed behind her. Earth's response. 12 hours later, every screen on Earth showed the same broadcast. Secretary-General Patricia Okonkwo sat at her desk in Geneva, her dark eyes steady and calm. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, she began. The Stellar Alliance Council has declared war on humanity. They have given us 60 days to surrender. They expect us to be afraid. She paused, and billions of people held their breath. They have made a mistake. In Colorado Springs, Admiral Richard Torres watched the broadcast from Deep Space Command headquarters. He was 61 years old, with gray hair and the posture of a man who had spent 40 years preparing for a war he hoped would never come. On his desk sat a folder marked with the highest security classification. He had never opened it in all his years of service. He opened it now. Inside were plans developed over 3 centuries. Hidden shipyards in the Kuiper Belt. Weapons research facilities on moons throughout the solar system. A network of automated defense platforms that had been disguised as commercial satellites. And at the center of it all, the Vanguard Protocol. Sir, his aide said quietly, we're receiving confirmation from all sectors. The reserve fleets are coming online. Richard stood and walked to the observation window. Above Earth, ships were appearing. Not the small patrol vessels the Alliance knew about, but massive warships that had been hiding in plain sight, their true nature concealed by false transponder codes and carefully managed intelligence leaks. How many ships do we have? He asked. Public fleet, 28 vessels. Hidden reserves, 347. The Vanguard fleet, 12 Titan-class carriers. Richard allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had learned its lessons well. You never show your enemy your full strength until you absolutely have to. Begin full mobilization, he ordered. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. It's time to stop pretending to be weak. Across human space, the machine of war began to move. On Mars, factories that had supposedly been producing mining equipment revealed their true purpose. On the moons of Saturn, research stations went dark and then blazed back to life with weapon systems that had been tested in secret for decades. Veterans put on their uniforms. Recruits stepped forward. And in shipyards hidden throughout the solar system, ships that had never appeared on any official registry powered up their engines for the first time. The Stellar Alliance had declared war on humanity. They were about to learn why that was a terrible mistake. The Reckoning. The Alliance Armada. Supreme Chancellor Zareth stood aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, watching through the observation port as the Alliance Armada assembled. 500 warships from 42 different species formed a wall of metal and energy that stretched across space. It was the largest military force ever gathered in this sector of the galaxy. Status report, he commanded. Fleet Commander Zenthos, a veteran of 30 conquests, checked his tactical display. His species resembled armored reptiles, with scales that shifted color based on emotional state. Right now they were a confident deep blue. All vessels report ready, Chancellor. We have 200 battlecruisers, 150 destroyers, 100 frigates and 50 carrier ships with fighter support. Our path to the human homeworld is clear. And their defenses? Minimal as expected. Long-range sensors detect 28 human vessels near their third planet. They appear to be civilian ships hastily converted for military use. Xanthos's scales rippled with amusement. They are not even attempting to evacuate their cities. Zareth nodded slowly. Perhaps they are wiser than we thought. Perhaps they realize that surrender is their only option for survival. Shall we offer them one final chance? No. They had their chance. Now they will learn what happens to species that defy the natural order. Zareth turned to face his crew. All ships proceed to Earth. Maintain battle formation. This will be over quickly. The Armada jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing from normal space in a cascade of energy. The trap. They emerged from FTL near Jupiter, expecting to find a frightened enemy scrambling to mount a defense. What they found instead was silence. Scan the area, Zareth ordered. Where are the human ships? Xanthos studied his sensors and his scales began to fade from blue to yellow. Chancellor, I am detecting anomalous readings throughout this system. There are structures on multiple moons that do not match our intelligence reports. Explain. These installations are military grade. Weapons platforms, shield generators, construction facilities. They were not here during our last survey. Impossible. Our last survey was only 6 months ago. Nevertheless, Chancellor, they are here now. Xanthos's scales were turning orange, approaching fear. And I am detecting ship signatures. Many ship signatures. They are emerging from behind the planetary bodies. Space erupted with light as hundreds of human vessels appeared. They had been hiding in the shadows of moons, behind asteroid fields, using the planets themselves as cover. Now they revealed themselves in a coordinated maneuver that demonstrated military precision the Alliance had not believed humans capable of. The human ships were nothing like the converted civilian vessels the Alliance had expected. These were purpose-built warships, sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that made Xanthos's scales turn completely red. All ships, battle stations, Zareth commanded, his voice tight. Maintain formation. We still outnumber them. A human voice crackled through the communication system. It was calm, almost conversational. Alliance Fleet, this is Admiral Richard Torres of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in human territory with hostile intent. I am authorized to offer you one opportunity to withdraw. I strongly suggest you take it. Zareth activated his own communication system. Human Admiral, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Your ships, while more numerous than we expected, cannot match Alliance military technology. Stand down immediately. Chancellor Zareth, I recognize your voice from the recordings Ambassador Chin sent us. Before this goes any further, I need to correct your assessment. You are not surrounding us. We are surrounding you. Preposterous. We have 500 warships. You have 500 warships in unfamiliar territory with supply lines stretched across multiple systems, using tactics developed against enemies who fight the way you expect them to fight. Richard's voice remained pleasant. We have 387 combat vessels in our home system, unlimited supplies, defensive positions we've spent 3 centuries preparing, and tactics you've never seen before. Xanthos leaned toward Zareth. Chancellor, our tactical analysis confirms his statement. We are positioned in the gravitational well of their largest planet. They hold the high ground on every approach vector. If we engage here, we will take heavy casualties. We will take acceptable casualties, Zareth corrected. All ships target the nearest human vessels. Fire at will. The Alliance fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles filled space with deadly light. The human ships scattered like schools of fish, their movements coordinated with impossible precision. They were faster than Alliance vessels, more maneuverable, dancing through the barrage with minimal losses. How are they doing this? Zareth demanded. Their computer systems are more advanced than ours, Xanthos reported, his scales now flashing patterns of alarm. They are sharing tactical data across their entire fleet in real time. Each ship knows what every other ship is doing. The human ships regrouped and returned fire. Their weapons were different from Alliance technology. Instead of energy beams, they used missiles that adjusted course mid-flight, seeking their targets with relentless determination. Instead of plasma cannons, they used railguns that fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. An Alliance destroyer took a direct hit from a railgun and simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy was so great that the ship's shields meant nothing. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Zareth shouted. But the Alliance fleet had been trained for traditional space combat. Their formations were rigid, designed for overwhelming firepower, not for fighting an enemy that refused to stand still. The humans, on the other hand, fought like they had invented warfare. They used the environment, hiding behind asteroids and appearing at unexpected angles. They targeted shield generators specifically, then focused fire on disabled vessels. They employed strategies that seemed random until patterns emerged, strategies the Alliance computers could not predict. 20 minutes into the battle, the Alliance fleet had lost 47 ships. The humans had lost 9. "This is impossible," Zareth said quietly. "They are a young species. They should not fight like this." Xanthos's scales had gone completely white, the color of absolute terror among his people. "Chancellor, with respect, we need to withdraw. This is not the easy conquest we anticipated. We do not retreat. Then we will die here." Admiral Torres's voice came through the communication system again. "Chancellor, you've lost almost 50 ships. I've lost 9. The mathematics are simple. You cannot win this engagement." "We have reinforcements," Zareth said. "The entire Alliance military stands ready to crush your species." "And how many species will remain in your alliance after they watch you throw away 500 ships in a single afternoon?" Richard let that question hang in the air. "Chancellor, I'm going to tell you something important." "Are you listening?" Zareth said nothing. "Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want your territory. We don't even want revenge for this attack. We just want to be left alone to grow and develop at our own pace." "Then you should have paid your tribute. The tribute system is slavery with extra steps, and you know it. But here's the thing, Zareth. We're willing to make you an offer. You are in no position to offer anything. I have 378 ships against your remaining 453. I'm in an excellent position." Richard's tone became more serious. "Here's the offer. You withdraw from human space right now. You go back to your council and explain that humanity is not interested in being a probationary member of the Alliance. We'll establish our own borders, develop our own technology, and govern ourselves." "Unacceptable. Let me finish. In exchange, we'll offer mutual defense treaties. If someone attacks the Alliance, we'll help. We'll share non-military technology on an equal basis. We'll engage in fair trade. But we will not be subjects. We will be partners or we will be enemies. Your choice." Zareth looked at his tactical display. The human ships had formed a sphere around his fleet, weapons charged and ready. They could have continued the attack at any time. Instead they waited. "And if I refuse?" he asked. "Then we continue this battle until one of us is destroyed. Given the current casualty ratios, that will be your fleet, not mine. Then your reinforcements will come and we'll fight them too. And we'll keep fighting until the Alliance understands that humanity will not be conquered." Xanthos stepped forward. "Chancellor, our people have a saying. The wise warrior wins before the battle begins. We have already lost this battle. The question is whether we lose just our pride or also our fleet." Zareth stood in silence, watching the human ships hold their positions. They were not moving, not threatening, simply waiting for his decision. It was the most disciplined military formation he had ever seen. "Fleet Commander Xanthos," he said finally, "order all ships to stand down. We are withdrawing." New understanding. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again in the Stellar Alliance Council chamber. The atmosphere was very different from her last visit. Chancellor Zareth addressed the assembly. After careful consideration and consultation with military advisors, the Stellar Alliance Council has voted to rescind its declaration of war against humanity. We have agreed to establish diplomatic relations on equal terms. Sarah nodded graciously. The United Earth government accepts. We look forward to mutually beneficial cooperation. A Krillian representative pulsed with confused colors. "How did you do it? How did a species only 300 cycles old develop such advanced military capabilities?" Sarah smiled. "We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. When we finally unified and learned we weren't alone in the universe, we made a simple decision. We would never be conquered. We would never be slaves. We would prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But your ships, your tactics, your coordination," the Krillian continued. "This level of warfare should take millennia to develop." "It did," Sarah said quietly. "It just happened on one planet instead of across the galaxy. Every war we fought, every battle, every conflict taught us something new. We didn't just study war. We perfected it because we had to. Because the alternative was extinction at each other's hands." Zareth spoke, his voice thoughtful. We assumed that because you were young you were weak. We assumed that because you had not conquered other species, you did not know how to fight. You assumed that warfare followed the same pattern everywhere, Sarah corrected gently. But humanity learned warfare in the hardest school possible. We learned it against ourselves, against an enemy that thought exactly like us and could predict our strategies. We had to constantly innovate, constantly improve, constantly find new ways to win. She looked around the chamber at the assembled species. The Stellar Alliance has been unchallenged for so long that you forgot what competition feels like. You forgot that sometimes the young species survives not because they're lucky, but because they're better prepared. The chamber was silent as the implications settled in. The Alliance stands ready to welcome humanity as a full member, Zareth announced. With all the rights and privileges therein. We accept, Sarah said. On equal terms. Partners, not subjects. Partners, Zareth agreed. As Sarah left the chamber, James walked beside her. Do you think they learned their lesson? Some of them, Sarah said. The smart ones. The others will need more convincing, but they'll come around. They don't have much choice. Because we'll defeat them? No. Because we'll show them a better way. Sarah smiled at the stars visible through the station's transparent walls. Humanity didn't survive 10,000 years of warfare just to conquer the galaxy. We survived to build something better. Now we get to show 42 species what that looks like. The galaxy had declared war on Earth. Earth had simply laughed and won. And in doing so, humanity taught the oldest civilizations in space a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate the species that learned warfare as a survival skill rather than a conquest tool. The Alliance would never be the same. And that, Sarah thought, was exactly the point.